Michaela, congrats on your new job.
Oh, thank you.
Excited for you. Sounds like a great opportunity.
Thanks, Mary.
Mary, I don't think we should let Michaela go. I'm thinking.
I think you're right.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's legal, isn't it?
I'm sure it is somewhere.
I'm an HR person. I can find something that makes it legal.
Maybe we not accept her resignation. Maybe
yeah, we could do that. Hold her hostage, lock her in, quarantine her. We could say she's been exposed to a confirmed case or something, right? And at least keep her 14 days.
There you go.
You know, if we do hear you cough this meeting, Michaela, that'll be another 14 days.
It's funny.
Mark, it should be all set to go.
All right, so we'll start this meeting. Georgetown-Scott County.
Stop all that talk. You're making Charlie Perkins nervous being an attorney. He's
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I learned long ago not to be nervous.
Starting the meeting, Planning Commission agenda for June 11th, 2020. It is 6 p.m., so let's get this meeting started. Commission business approval of May invoices. Take a look at the invoices, and I'll need a motion to approve.
take that motion, Stephen.
Motion by Mr. Smith,
Second that.
and I think that was a second by Mr. Stone. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Okay, no, anyone opposed? Perfect. Approval of the May 14th, 2020 minutes. Again, take a minute to read those, and I need a motion.
So move.
So it sounded like a motion by Mr. Mifflin,
Yes.
I'll second.
and that was a second by Mrs. Singer. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And then approval of the June agenda. Joe, do we have any additional changes other than what's on here?
No, no changes.
Okay, so I need an approval of the June agenda. A
So
motion.
moved.
It sounds like Mr. Smith made the motion,
Second.
and that was second by Mr. Vest. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Item D, items for postponement or withdrawal. So I guess I'll go through them because there's a lot of them. So if we have, and I'm having a problem, I only see a few people on here. So Matt, make sure you unmute guests and attorneys and things like that. So
Yeah.
that can speak. So it looks like FSP 2020-10, the Hunt's property is being postponed. So if people are on here for that, it is being postponed. Looks like FSP 2020-13, Snowball Trust property amended is also postponed. So if someone's on here for that, again, it's postponed to next month. Looks like FSP under new business, FSP 2020-22, the Newman property, that one is being withdrawn. Also, the PDP 2020-23, the Derringer property, that one is also being withdrawn. And then also FSP 2020-24, the Mitchell property, that one is also being postponed. So again, if you're on Zoom video for any of those are either being postponed or withdrawn. If you have questions or want to find out if they are going to be on our next meeting, you're always more than welcome to call the Planning and Zoning Office at 502, 863-3701?
867-37.
867-3701. Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, so anything else for Joe that you're aware of, postponement or withdrawal, or did I cover them all?
That covered it. Yes.
Okay. Now for the consent agenda, I think we do have a couple that are consent eligible. The first one being FSP 2020-12 property. It's a final subdivision plat to subdivide 2 tracts from an original parent tract of 26.36 acres located at 715 North Mount Gilead Church Road. I guess being that this is a Zoom meeting, we probably should do each of them individually. So that one's eligible for consent. So is anybody on this Zoom meeting that is here either against, in favor or against this application? Otherwise, this one's consent eligible. Matt, you've got everybody unmuted that's on.
They're not unmuted now, but what I've done is I put a screen up that'll show them how they can raise their hand if they want
Oh,
to.
okay, because I can't see the screen. The way it's set up right now, I can only see like 4 people, 5 people on there, it looks like. So I can't
Okay,
see everybody.
gotcha. Yeah, if anybody is here to speak, we've got instructions on the screen as far as how to raise your hand for mobile or if you're on a computer.
Okay. So at this point, it looks like, and Matt, you need to be my judge there. Do you see any hands raised? Because I can't.
Not at this time, no.
Okay. So I guess I would need a motion then to take the Richard Dozer property as consent.
I would make that motion, Mark.
Was that okay? A motion by Mr. Smith,
I second.
second by Mrs. Mizell. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next one that is consent eligible is the FSP 2020-21, the Hughes Estate Property Final Subdivision Plat to subdivide a 5-acre tract from a parent tract of 35.7 acres located at 470 Burton Pike. Again, taking a moment to let anyone know or ask for anyone if they have questions for or against this particular consent.
There is one person who has their hand raised. I'm going to give them the ability to speak.
Yeah. Okay.
Miss McCormick, you're unmuted. Did you have any questions about this one?
No, it's just mine. That's the only reason.
Oh, it's your subdivision?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what would you normally do, Mrs. McCormick, is we ask if anybody's here in favor of or against, and if they're not, then it's considered consent eligible, meaning that we can vote on it to approve it without hearing the whole presentation. So,
Gotcha.
okay. So anybody else, Matt?
No one else has raised their
All
hand
right.
now.
So then I entertain a motion to approve as consent.
I make the motion.
I think I heard Mrs. Mizell make the motion for consent
I'll second it.
and a second by Mr. Stone. So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? Oh. Did I hear somebody say they were opposed? Okay, that must have been in favor of. Okay, so it passed with consent. Next on the agenda and last is our new business EPDP 2020-25 Innovative Holdings LLC. It's a preliminary development plan.
It's done, isn't it? Yeah.
A 15,000 square foot building and 151,275 square foot gravel equipment and material storage area located at 185 Industry Road.
Yeah. Give me just a second to get to that in the PowerPoint. Okay. Yeah. So this application, like you said, it's for a 2-phase development. The first phase of their development, they would extend Industry Road from where it ends right now up to sort of the main developable area of their property, and we'll have some aerial images here in a second. And then the other part of the first phase would be for them to construct a gravel equipment storage area where they would store equipment and materials. The second phase of their project would involve the construction of a paved parking lot, as well as a building that would have both some office space as well as, I believe, they said some maintenance shop. That's right. So like you said, the project's at Industry Road. This project was rezoned to light industrial and conservation officially earlier this year. They started that application process at the end of 2019. I went through city council earlier this year. All of the surrounding properties are either zoned light industrial, mostly the properties to the south along Industry Road. And then the rest of the surrounding properties, mostly those to the north and somewhat on the east and west, are zoned agricultural. The site is about 17.3 acres, and they are showing adequate parking. Looking at an aerial photo of the site with some contours, just to give us some context, you can see can you all see where I have my mouse pointing?
Yes.
Okay. This is where Industry Road ends at present. It's a county road that extends down to Delaplane Road. This is the Onheiser property that we heard the application last month. And then this area that's outlined in blue here is the project site. So they applied for a rezoning. And as you can see here on the zoning map, the result of that, this property is now zoned light industrial. We've got the conservation along the drainage area in the back, and you can barely see it if you squint. But there's little hash marks that indicate that this property is inside city limits now. They were annexed. Going to their development plan, you can see. Let's see. Here, I believe, is the property line is actually not showing up for me, but it should be for you further down here. But they're proposing to basically extend Industry Road. You can see the cross section here labeled as BB, where they're proposing a 24-foot wide asphalt road to be paved back to their site. This area here that I'm kind of outlining would be the gravel area where they're proposing to store equipment and material. So that all would be part of phase one, would be this gravel area and basically the paving of this roadway. The parking lot and the building would take up a much smaller area, but would be part of phase two whenever they get to that part. But they are looking for preliminary approval basically of both phases at this time. Stormwater drainage would generally kind of come down towards the west here. As far as the gravel area, I have no problem with. I'm recommending that the Planning Commission approve their waiver to allow the use of gravel in that area. It's something that's done pretty commonly for storage areas in industrial areas in this part of Georgetown. So I think it makes sense to allow them to have that use here. Typically, we allow or recommend allowing gravel in areas where it's not going to be, a super high level of traffic, because what we're really trying to avoid is, a lot of dust getting in the air that might become a nuisance to neighboring property owners. We're also looking to minimize the amount of gravel that ultimately ends up getting tracked out onto the public roads. So sort of by having them have their gravel area sort of separated here from where that road becomes more of a public thoroughfare serving multiple properties, I think that buffer area kind of minimizes the amount of gravel that might get tracked out onto that road. As far as their landscaping, typically, if we just kind of go through the typical landscaping requirements for light industrial property, it's required to be screened along the boundary with a 15-foot wide landscaping buffer from all agriculturally zoned properties. So if I go back and show you the zoning map, you can see there's, on almost 3 sides, they have agriculturally zoned properties. Now, there's there's an exception to that. If the applicant is able to get a written agreement from their neighbor saying that, they understand that, there's a buffer required, but their neighbor agrees to waive that, then we don't make them put the buffers in those areas. And that's actually specific to that boundary between light industrial and agricultural. So we did get an agreement for the property owner to waive the buffer along the 2 Alpha property. If the applicant's able to get any additional waivers or written agreements between, now and the final development plan, we'll allow them to remove some of the landscaping that would be required for that final development plan. They are asking for a waiver here along the northern part of the property to that same landscaping buffer. And I'm in support of that as well. If we look at, again, if we go back to the aerial imagery, you can see that there's a pretty substantial number of trees that are kind of protected by that conservation area that they rezoned. So that's a much wider and more substantial buffer than we would have been asking them to provide by planting a 15-foot wide landscaping buffer. So I'm in support of that waiver as well too. And if you're following in your staff report, that last waiver is waiver number 3. Looking at the vehicular use area requirements, basically what we'll be looking for them to do with the final development plan is whenever they go to construct this parking lot, we'll look for that to be screened from neighboring properties and public and private rights of way. So it's a fairly small thing. I'm not aware that the applicant is looking to not follow those requirements. As far as the interior landscaping, they didn't put it on here, just I assume mostly because of the scale of the drawing, but in the site statistics, they are indicating that they'll be complying with all of our interior landscaping requirements. The canopy requirements, they'll also be meeting those. The trees that they're anticipating preserving on the northern side of the property alone are enough to meet those requirements. The last thing as far as landscaping I wanted to talk about was the gravel storage area in general. Not landscaping ordinance, but the zoning ordinance spells out how those storage areas and industrial areas are to be screened. And just as a general summary, if there's an adjoining property that's of a different zoning classification, then the screening needs to be substantial enough to where it's not visible. And so that's something that they're showing landscaping here along the eastern side, and they're proposing to keep all these trees. That's something that we'll probably just have to work with them as they go into their final development plan to make sure that, you know, the areas like in this area here where they're proposing some new landscaping to screen it, that those are all going to be substantial enough that, you know, there's not going to be any sort of visual impacts on the neighboring property owners to have this storage area next to them. They are asking for permission for early grading. You know, I've talked to Ben about it, as well as the applicants also talked to Ben about it. Ben and I don't have any problems with them applying for early grading or with the planning commission approving that. I do spell out in waiver number 1 sort of the things that they'll have to comply with in order to get that early grading permit from Ben. Things like, you know, getting their grading plan to them and reviewed, their stormwater plan and their erosion control plan. In general, I think their plan is a good one. I am recommending approval of their application with the 3 waivers that they requested and the 6 conditions that are listed in the staff report. All the conditions that I put in the staff report are really just standard conditions that we put with any development plan.
All right, thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt from the commission? Okay, if not, we'll let the applicants speak.
Yeah, so, I'm moving them up to where they'll be able to use their cameras and microphones. So
Okay.
maybe just a second, but it's
No problem.
it should be John Hunt and Jeff Metzi.
This is John Hunt. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer. I think Matt did a great job explaining it. I think it's pretty straightforward. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Any questions for John Hunt?
John, what type of materials will be stored in that material storage area?
And I think one of the applicants is actually on here with me as well.
I'm on. Can you hear
Okay.
me, John?
Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a kind of a material storage and then an equipment storage. So we have some, you know, trucks as well as a few excavators and dozers. The majority of the time, those are on our job sites, but they need to have a home if they're not working. So it'll be storage of that. And then a lot of times if we're taking, gravel or material from one site to another for backfill, et cetera. That could be a temporary, not a long-term storage, but a temporary storage for that in between jobs.
Charlie,
Yes.
or Charlie Perkins rather, can you swear in the applicants? Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yes.
Yes, will the applicant, raise your right hand, please. Is it raised?
It is. I was gonna say, I can turn my video on. Let me start my video. I'm in the car pulled over. Can you
All right.
see me now?
Yes. You both swear or affirm what you're about to say to be the truth to the best of your information and belief.
Yes, sir.
I do.
Thank you.
So were you finishing a question or was there a question asked? I'm sorry.
No, he answered my question. My next question was, do we have any kind of timeline between phase 1 and phase 2? Know when you'll be building your building?
Just based on projects and everything we have going on, our goal would be to have phase 1 start. Obviously, we applied for the preliminary grading plan early fall. I suspect it'll be at least 6 months, if not a year after that, before we would build the facility, just for funding and everything else.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I guess the only question I would have is, would there be any environmental concerns at all? And man, that's maybe a question for Joe or Ben or even Matt.
We didn't have any comments from EMA at our technical review committee, so I'm not aware of any concerns that they might have. I can try to reach out to Mike prior to the final development plan, but I'm not aware of them having any concerns with this site.
And that was just a question because I know we're out there and I know one of the waivers I think is gravel versus I think concrete floors. And so I was a little just worried about that because I know there's some large equipment. Any other questions by the commission for the applicant, Mr. Metz or Mr. Hunt? Who's the engineer? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
You want to see if there's anyone from the
Yes.
anyone from the public to speak on this?
Matt, is there anybody? Because I can't see everybody.
There's one person, they don't have their hand raised. Let me put the screen back up that shows how to do the raise hand.
And I guess just to make sure that whomever that person is has adequate time to raise his or her hand. Give them us, I guess, a couple seconds here if they have a question. And Matt, please let us know if they do, because like I said, I can't see that person on my screen.
Okay. I mean, it's just one person. Do you want me to just allow them to speak and they can
that's
tell us
fine.
what application they're here for?
No problem. Yeah, and or ask them if you can see their name, because again, I can't see the name.
Yeah, so there's I gave them the ability to unmute themselves, but there's a Rachel Brown. If you don't mind telling us what application you're here for.
Looks like she's still muted. Are you have control or she have her own self muted? Oh, there you go. Mrs. Brown, or do you have are you here for this application or do you have a question or were you here for a prior application? I still can't hear. It looks like she's unmuted.
It looks like she's unmuted. I can't hear her either.
I still don't hear her.
I can't hear anything either.
I don't know.
Mrs. Brown,
I mean,
would you
she's unmuted.
Right. have the capability, if she can't speak, she can actually even look like she can chat too, correct? So she can chat to the whole commission, I guess. And I opened up my chat box and I don't see anything. Oh,
I'm
there's,
sending her a message real quick.
oh,
hopefully.
okay. Yeah, I do see your message. So just want to make sure that everybody gets their opportunity to speak before we entertain a motion.
And now it's not showing up in the list of attendees anymore.
Oh, maybe she just jumped off. All right.
I suppose, yeah.
All right. Well, again, at that point, if there's no one else here to speak against or for, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we accept PDP 2020-25 Innovative Holdings LLC.
With
I'll
the
second.
first,
Oh, with the or the 9 conditions. Nope.
there's
6.
3 waivers and a handful of conditions. Looks like 6.
The 3 waivers and the 6 conditions.
Okay, I've got a motion by Mr. Smith,
I'll second.
and I've got a second by Mrs. Singer. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Charlie, what is the, again, remind me or refresh my memory. They'll have to go down to planning and zoning to sign it. You'll already have them pre-assigned or pre-signed yourself?
Yes, our conditions are signed. Their signature will be, are needing to come down to the office, need to call in advance and tell them they're coming, and then sign those conditions. They get their copy then.
Sounds good. You hear that, Mr.
Okay.
Hunt and Mr. Metz?
Yes, we'll take care of it.
I heard that. I will try to make it by sometime next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a good evening. I think that's
Thank you
everything.
all.
Thanks, you too.
I think that's everything we have for this meeting. I know for the minutes, I'll get these signed, Charlie, for you, and I'll either drop them off to you, your secretary here probably tomorrow, if you're okay with that.
That'll be fine.
Anything else for the good of our group here?
I just want to say on behalf of the commission, I
Yes.
wanted to thank Michaela for her service for the last
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
couple of years, and best of luck in your new job.
Yeah, best of luck. You will be missed. Now we only have Matt to pick on, so we'll miss you.
That's right. Thank you. I'm gonna miss you guys too.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Good luck, Michaela.
Good luck, Michaela.
Thank you.
Go learn a bunch, and then you can come back here.
There you go.
Get a transportation department.
Yeah, by then we'll be bigger than Louisville.
Never
Yes,
know.
we will. You never know.
Hey, Mark, I had one thing.
Yes.
I don't know if we want to discuss the next meeting. Our regular scheduled meeting is July 9th, and we need to notify applicants by the 24th as to whether we're having a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting. We do have 5 applications in that we got in the first of the month for next month. So we've got 5 applications, potentially two that were postponed. I don't know if they're gonna go next month or not. So that's potentially 7. And then we have a zone change on Old Oxford that's waiting for an in-person meeting. So that should be a pretty large group. I would guess at least 20 people, since it's on Old Oxford there. I know the state guidance is that gatherings of 50 or fewer people are going to be allowed starting June 29th. But the fiscal courtroom, I don't know what the capacity is, Matt. I think it's about 100. I'm pretty sure we can get the planning commission members, staff, and applicants in. But if we get any more than probably 10 members of the public, I don't think we can spread out and meet all the guidance, COVID guidance.
Question I have though is not the state protesting limit 100? So if this is considered a protest, we could have 100, right?
Maybe.
Sorry, bad
Outside.
jokes. Bad joke. But no, let's follow the rules, whatever city council and fiscal court are doing. If they're following those rules and they're going to do Zoom meetings next month, then I think we need to do the same and follow our politicians as far as what they're doing. So if city council and fiscal court are still going to do Zoom meetings for July, I'd say we do the same. And then Oxford, especially if it needs to be an in-person meeting, will have to wait till August.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, city council definitely is. Fiscal court is meeting in person, but without the public. I think they're spreading out in the courtroom. But they don't have public, the public participation, public hearing requirements that we do.
Joe, what about the possibility of having the commission members and the applicants in there, and then everyone else wait outside and we just call them as those items come up? It would take a little longer, but at least they would, just like at a doctor's office now, you wait out in the parking lot. They've got your phone number and they call you when they've got room for you to come inside.
I guess an additional question I have, you mentioned that the fiscal court is going to be in attendance, but not allow the general public, and they're going to space themselves out. Well, I know, and you all know, we're elbow to elbow when we're in there. So are they going to do every other seat and then put half the magistrates like in a second row or something?
I think they have half of the magistrates in the audience. Yeah, in the front row or in where the audience normally sits. So Charlie, I think your idea might work. I'm just a little worried about the old Oxford zone change. We don't know how big a crowd we're going to get out. We typically get a pretty big crowd for anything in that area. So I think even 20 to 30 people, I think it'd be tough to get them all in the room.
That would make, I think, for a very, very long meeting. I would almost just kind of continue maybe a Zoom meeting. Again, it's going to be tough with who knows how many people, 20, 30 or more people in there, let's say in opposition of. Do we want to try to maybe in preparation for this Oxford, have some, let's be maybe proactive and try to answer all these questions prior to the neighbors coming to the meeting? I know a lot of times I feel like people come to the meeting, they're as informed as they need to be. And if they were to sit and talk to Joe or Ben or Matt, or a lot of times they can get their answers answered ahead of time. Can we attempt to do that just to make sure that our meeting goes?
I would say as far as that, what part of the reason they want to wait until they can have an in-person meeting is they want to hold some, I don't know what it ends up looking like, but they want to hold some sort of community meeting before they come to the planning commission meeting. So I guess my hope would be that in them doing that, they can hopefully answer some of those questions for the public and take some of the public's comment at that time.
Now, let me ask you, this meeting would be with the neighbors, and then who is the applicants again?
I forget what their name is. I know the name of the development is Redwoods.
Yeah. They're from out of state, from Ohio.
Okay, I know who they are. Okay. Yeah, so why don't we try to see if they can have a meeting with Redwood, the community. And I mean, we don't need to be involved, and they can limit that to hopefully under 50 people and get those questions answered, whether it's somewhere in a community room or, I mean, I don't know if the area has any type of outdoor gazebos, something that they can hopefully hash out a lot of their questions and answers and differences ahead of time. And then, like you said, if the maximum's 50, I mean, they can manage that, maybe 50 people at a time, assuming there's that many.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in favor of that. I think there's always going to be the chance that they're going to want to come. Some people are going to want to come to the meeting just because they're going to want to hear the applicant, basically give their testimony and describe their project under oath, which if they host their own meeting, I'm not saying that they would, not tell the truth, but it's always a possibility, I suppose.
Plus, for our records and benefit, we want to get it on record and record it, etc., to make sure that we hold them to the highest standard that we require here in Scott County.
Joe, what's the possibility of having our meeting at someplace like the auditorium at one of the high schools, where there'd be more room out there?
Or the extension office, or the library. I think the library has a community room as well.
Oh, it's not near big enough. I was thinking the
Library is not big enough, but definitely the Ag Extension office would be big enough, and we could space people apart or families apart, or like to Charlie's, the high school, I think would be a great place.
Auditorium at the high school would have plenty of room to spread out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, would you look into that and see if we want to do it as a public meeting, maybe we can do it at one of those two places.
Okay.
But it would have to be for an August meeting, wouldn't it? Because July, they still wouldn't want more than 50 people.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it'd have to be at least August.
All right.
So, okay.
Whatever y'all want to do, I'm in.
I don't think
I want to get rid of the Zoom.
What's the possibility of telling them we won't hear their application until August, and then have an in-person meeting in July with all the rest of them, because that's the one that we're expecting big crowd from.
No doubt, I think they could have their meeting prior to the August meeting, and like I said, hopefully hash out most of their differences.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
possibility too. If you all like to do that, hear all the other, but then again, we may have 7 applications, so I'm not sure how that would.
Well,
Is there any way to do a hybrid meeting where you could do both in person? Even folks that were sort of in overflow, if they couldn't come in, could still watch it on Zoom or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we could look into that, but I'm not sure how that would work. We'd have to figure out how that would work.
some technical things to overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to cause more problems for us if we can just do Zoom and get by until we can meet in person. But I don't know, do you want me to look into the separate meeting room and maybe a couple different options and then meet with the executive committee maybe in a week or two, or a week?
Yeah, that's fine.
Next week?
Yeah,
Just talk it through.
that's the thing. If they start lifting some of these restrictions and it changes, then might be perfectly doable in July. But
Possibly.
it could go the other way too.
I think if it's going to be a big meeting, like for the Oxford, we need to push it till August and do the big place, like the big auditorium, like they were talking about, like the high school or something like that, to where there's more place to spread out, especially if we're going to have several large ones like you're talking about in July. And if we have to, if it's going to be only gatherings of 50 or more, I don't know if it's going to be doable in July, and we might have to stick with Zoom for July. That's my humble opinion.
July, if we've got, just on this months, we've got 3 postponed and 2 withdrawn, 1 potentially coming back next month. There's plus, how many new apps did you say we have, Joe? 5?
Yes, we have 5.
Then that could potentially be 9 or 10 applications for next month, correct?
Yeah, I think 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's a lot. So I think with that limit being 50, I think we may have to stick with Zoom just because of that many applications. I just don't think that would be, unless something changes between now and then. I'd say stick with Zoom, and then unless something changes, with the them lifting more, being a little less restrictive between now and then. I'd say set it as a Zoom meeting with the potential to change to an in-person meeting if things get better. And I think that'd be making it less restrictive, so I don't think it would be a problem, would it, Charlie Perkins?
No,
But you said there is a deadline of the 24th?
24th, yeah.
24th, you have to let
Yeah.
people know how the meeting is going to be conducted.
Yeah, I would say probably before that, because notices have to go out the 24th. So probably, 20th or so. We'd have to give them time to do their notices,
Which is
get them out correctly.
basically next Friday. You need an answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would agree with Mark. I think I would recommend just doing the Zoom one more month, and I can come back with some, I can research a few different options and bring that next month.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a
All right.
plan.
Just keep us, informed, Joe, if you don't mind, via email or whatever. And then we'll just keep going one day at a time.
Okay.
Anything else for the good of the group, the meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 6:43, it looks like.
So move.
Yes.
I got a motion by Mr. Mifflin,
Second.
second by Mr. Smith. All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Hi.
All right, y'all, everyone have a great
Bye,
meeting.
everybody. Thanks.
Bye,
See y'all.
Michaela.
Yeah, again, Michaela, good luck.
Bye, Michaela. Good luck.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, Michaela.
Come back and we can have a beer.
All right, sounds good.